In this nugget, we're going to do some comparisons. We're going to figure out what the differences are between Agile, yes, I'm using air quotes, Scrum, and Waterfall. And I think this is going to lay the foundation so you can tell the differences between the three. One is kind of like the other, and one has nothing to do with the other. So let's get into it and check it out. Let me grab Mr. Penn here. So let's talk about the type. What are we talking about? Agile is really a mindset along with some principles. I almost wrote Pringles because I like Pringles. Whereas Scrum is an actual framework. It's very loose. There are some time boxes, and we're going to talk about this quite a bit, but it's a framework within Agile. Waterfall is more of a linear methodology. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm simply saying there are some differences. If you're in a heavy construction environment, heavy engineering environment, heavy oversight environment with tons of documentation, you're going to see Waterfall. Agile and Scrum, not about that. And let's keep going. The approach in Agile is iterative and incremental. And yes, as always, I will post these. I'm sorry for the writing. It's just how I am. Scrum is also iterative, but with sprints. Now, those sprints are going to become very important, whereas the approach in Waterfall is very sequential. And we've talked about this many times. Concept, design, construction, release, etc. Pretty easy. The structure in Agile, you'll like this one, is flexible and adaptive. In Scrum, it's time boxed, meaning things are done in certain amounts of time, and they are very important. There are 5 Scrum events. They have specific no greater than times, and we're going to talk about it quite a bit, whereas Waterfall is more of strict phases. Let's talk about some planning. In Agile, as a mindset, it's merely continuous and evolving. I like that. Whereas in Scrum, there's sprint planning before each sprint. Now, this goes back to what I said a moment ago. There is sprint planning. That sprint planning, since we're already talking about it, can last no more than 8 hours for a 1-month sprint. There are two events right there. Sprint planning and the sprint. And let's keep going. We're going to talk about this quite a bit. Whereas in Waterfall, there's a ton of upfront planning, which is why it takes so long to get anything done. Let's talk about documentation. Usually it's very minimal, which is fantastic. In Scrum, it's minimal as well, and you typically see it in the form of backlogs. Not that big a deal. In Waterfall, very heavy and formal. So there we go. There are the first 5 categories. Let's keep going. Let's clear the screen and let's move on. Let's talk about delivery style. Small working increments in Agile. Here you have per sprint. Your delivery style is per sprint in the form of increments as well. Now, there's a nuanced difference here. Scrum produces a working increment, at the end of every sprint. The Agile as a mindset means we can back off of that and have a working increment, but it's not necessarily confined to that 1 month. And in Waterfall, your delivery style is at the end. Customer involvement is frequent, along with feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Thank you, Ken Blanchard. The interesting thing about Scrum is the product owner represents the customer. Let's just go with product owner reps. He is the voice of the customer. And in Waterfall, it's normally at the beginning and the end. Now that can change depending on the kind of project, the kind of industry, etc. But typically in Waterfall, you see it largely at the front, largely at the end. Change. Embraced, which is fantastic. Expected. Now, for Scrum, it's accepted within the backlog. There is no arbitrary change. It must be done through the product backlog and the sprint backlog. In Waterfall, it is very formal and very often discouraged. I think this is a good place to take a break. We've talked about 8 of them. When we come back, we'll finish the other 7. So I'll see you in a moment. Welcome back to the next part of this. We're still comparing. I'm still here. I still have Mr. Penn. Let's go. Let's talk about the team structure. Cross-functional. They know a lot about a lot. They move seamlessly among these. They are also self-organizing, which is very cool. In Scrum, you have a product owner, you have a Scrum Master, and you have developers or devs. That's it. There are no other team members. In Waterfall, they are siloed. You might have analysts, engineers, project managers, salespeople, marketing people, etc. They are siloed. Meetings as needed. I like that one. Now, in Scrum, there are defined meetings. You have planning, sprint planning at the beginning of every sprint. You have the daily Scrum, which we're going to talk about. You have the reviews and the retrospectives. Let's just call them retros. These are very defined. They are Scrum events. There are any other, how do I want to say this? Any other meetings held during the sprint are not formal. They are informally held among the self-organizing team members. Now, meetings in Waterfall, let's just go with all of them. You can have milestone meetings, status meetings, change meetings, client meetings, whatever it is. So there are lots of meetings. So we have 5 more of these. Let's move on. Let's wrap this up. So success measures in Agile. Value. And when I say value, I mean customer value. Does the customer find value in it? Because if the customer does, great. You are delivering on whatever those success metrics are for the customer. It's not what you believe, it's what they believe. And can the customer change it based on feedback from external to the company, perhaps with the end users, or internal to the company with leadership? Absolutely. That can be changed at any time, but you are always seeking value. Value has to be defined, though. Let's move on. Success measurements here are increments at the end of every sprint. If you are delivering a working increment, you are moving towards some sort of success measurement. And in Waterfall, it's at the end. Hopefully, you are delivering whatever was in the documented approved scope, because if you didn't, you're not going to be successful. Let's talk about risk. It's ID'd early and through every iteration. That doesn't surprise me because risk can change. Now in Scrum, it's adjusted every sprint. And this will make more sense when we talk about that. And in Waterfall, risk handling is all the way through. You can have risk events early, you can have risk events late, you can have risk events on the very last day. It really does depend. Let's talk about quality. I love this because it is built in. Quality is not inspected in, it is built in. In Scrum, it is the definition of done. Whoops, that's Department of Defense. The definition of done, and we're going to talk about that. Now, the quality focus here, how do we know we've achieved it? With quality assurance and quality control. Quality has to be defined, it has to be measurable, it has to be tracked in any of these. So I always love talking about quality. Now, the best use for Agile are those projects that need flexibility, and they are evolving. The best use case for Scrum is when the team needs structure. And by structure, I mean Scrum events that are time-boxed. In Waterfall, you're talking about stable, predictable requirements. Let's just call those RECs. And yes, I forgot how to spell predictable for a moment because my brain was being unpredictable. Let's talk about some quick examples and wrap this up. When you talk about the broad use case of Agile, you're talking about Kanban, you're talking about extreme programming. It can be used for lean projects. Now, when you talk about Scrum, you're talking about software development. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, no problem on that one. And some easy examples of Waterfall, construction, manufacturing, government RFPs. There you have it, folks. 15 ways to compare Agile, Scrum, Waterfall. Again, there is a nuance here. Think of Agile as this big idea about being adaptive and flexible and being able to evolve. Add a little bit of structure to it for software within it, and you get Scrum. So, Agile, Waterfall. Within Agile, you have a more solidified framework called Scrum, which is what Professional Scrum Master I is all about.